Now therefore ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God. The following lesson was presented at 1008 East Exchange Parkway, Allen, Texas, by William St. John on April 15, 2016. We hope you enjoy Under His Wing.
I appreciate the very kind welcome that you've given to us, and certainly we're thankful to be here tonight. We count it an honor. I am personally honored that you would ask me to come and speak for you, that you trust me that well, and that means a lot to me, and I hope that I can do a lot of good in the short time that we're here and no harm at all. Tonight for the text, or to introduce the lesson for the night, I'd like to look in Psalm 17. I'd like to read verses 1 through 9, if you would. Psalm 17, a prayer of David. This is what David had to say. Hear the right, O Lord. Attend unto my cry. Give ear unto my prayer, that goeth not out of feigned lips. Let my sentence come forth from thy presence. Let thine eyes behold the things that are equal. Thou hast proved mine heart. Thou hast visited me in the night. Thou hast tried me and shall find nothing. I am purposed that my mouth shall not transgress. Concerning the works of men, by the word of thy lips, I have kept me from the paths of the destroyer. Hold up my goings in thy paths, that my footsteps slip not. I have called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. Incline thine ear unto me, and hear my speech. Show thy marvelous loving kindness, O thou that savest by thy right hand them that put their trust in thee, from those that rise up against them. Keep me as the apple of the eye. Hide me under the shadow of thy wings. From the wicked that oppress me, from my deadly enemies who compass me about. Overlooking my mistake, the reading of Psalm 17, verses 1 through 9. This phrase that David uses here, keep me or hide me under the shadow of thy wings, is interesting. And I'd like to consider some of that with you tonight. In the Old Testament book of Ruth, the Bible tells us in Ruth 1 and verse 1, it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. It may be that in reading the book of Ruth, you may have thought of it like a modern-day romance, and many do, and if this is the way we look at it, and only at that, then we really miss the message of this book. A good story, of course, conveys more than plot and characters. Stories convey faith and values, and writers and movie producers are well aware of this, and so Hollywood's argument that they're just trying to entertain us is blatantly absurd. The story of Ruth imparts faith and values, important values, which speak powerfully to a culture caught up in lust and shallow commitments as ours is today. It speaks of these values through a very human account. Unlike some of the other books of the Bible, there are no mighty acts of God in the book of Ruth. No plagues of water turned to blood. No frogs or flies or lice. No parting of the Red Sea. No smoking, trembling Mount Sinai. No manna falling in the wilderness. No Jordan River being stopped. No Jericho walls being crumbled. No sun standing still. Just people living out their lives just like most of us do. Now, don't misunderstand. God is present in this account, and that's part of the point. However, God is present without the dramatic, without the miracles, without the unquestionable displays of His power. In the story of Ruth, God is at work from beginning to end, interacting with the people in the story in quiet yet profound ways. It is only in hindsight that we recognize His presence. Again, the story begins, or the account begins with, there was a famine in the land. These were not pleasant days, and never in my experience have I understood a famine. Never have I felt the pains that famine brings. Never have I seen it in other lands except in pictures. These were not pleasant days. Now, the book of Judges gives us the bigger picture, the sweeping events, but the book of Ruth focuses on one little family. And there's a tragedy in this family. as many of us must face. Famine forces the family of Elimelech to leave their home and their inheritance in the land. Can you imagine what it would be like to have no food here and feel that you were forced to move into a strange land that you did not know of, a strange land with strange voices and strange customs? This family travels to Moab. It is on the east side of the Jordan. Here they hope to find peace and food to sustain them. Elimelech, his wife Naomi, their two sons Mahlon and Chilion, were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judea, where Jesus would be born. In the country of Moab, Elimelech dies. Now imagine, it's bad enough you've gone to a foreign country like this, strange to you. But then to have the head of the household die. And his sons marry Orpah and Ruth, who are women of Moab. And this would not be acceptable as well. But the tragedies do not stop with the famine or the moving or the death of Elimelech. In addition, both of the sons die. Now it is a disaster indeed. You see, most widows in that day and age depended on their family, or else they begged. Naomi has no family. She has two daughters-in-laws, and her daughters-in-laws have family in Moab. She instructs them to stay with them. Naomi decides to return to Bethlehem, Judea, to her homeland. It is to their credit that both of the daughter-in-laws insist on leaving their family and going with Naomi. In chapter 1 and verse 8 we read, Naomi said unto her two daughters-in-laws, Go, return each to his mother's house, or to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with me and with the dead and with me. Now the word kindly here means faithful, loyal. May the Lord deal loyally with you, faithfully with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. She does not say that the Lord has dealt faithfully with her. Now she's not blaming the Lord. She's not accusing the Lord. But she thinks that God has left off his blessings upon her. Naomi wants the Lord to deal kindly with her daughter-in-laws, to show loyalty and loving kindness, even though she believes the hand of God is against her. And she's grieved at that. Look in verse 13. Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. Can you imagine what it must have been like to be in a strange land? Your husband's dead, your sons are dead, and you feel like God's hand is pressing upon you. Naomi pleads and Orpah agrees. She returns to her home. Ruth will not go. She will not let Naomi go. She makes this beautiful and profound commitment to Naomi in verse 16 and 17. Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or return from following thee. For whither thou goest I will go, and where thou lodgest I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, thy God my God. Where thou diest will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. That is beautiful. It is quite well a definition of love. And this phrase is often used in weddings. Will you go with this man? But here there is no hint of modern romance. Here it is a woman making a covenant, pledging loyalty, faithfulness to her mother-in-law, no matter what. No matter what. What does that mean? What do we mean when we say, no matter what? I'll be there no matter what. Oh, you can depend on me no matter what. I'll be faithful and true no matter what. What do we mean when we say that? In Ruth's case, no matter what could have easily meant the worst of poverty, begging for enough food to stay alive, or even starving to death. But it doesn't matter. Ruth is going to be faithful and true, even to the point of death. She will go where Naomi goes. She will die where Naomi dies. She'll be buried there. There was no arguing with that kind of love. As Christians, brethren, we must be true to our word. We live in a society, we live in a world that has been taught to lie, that makes a lot of promises and breaks a lot of promises. As Christians, you realize that we're not to even swear. In James 5 and verse 12, James said, But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea and your nay, nay, lest you fall into condemnation. You know why Christians are not supposed to swear? Well, we fall into condemnation. That's true. Is it because we're told not to? Well, yes, that's clear enough. But dear brother, dear sister, don't you see the reason that Christians don't swear? There's no need. When we say yes, you can depend on it. When we say no, that's exactly what it means. Christians are true to their word. They're true to their word, and their word is true. Ruth was true to her word. She would follow Naomi even if it meant poverty and humiliation and death. Now, the word Naomi is a beautiful name. It means pleasant. Some mother and father, when they contemplated the birth of this dear child, said, let's call her Pleasant. You know, parents often do that. They look at the meaning of the name, and not just the name alone. Pleasant. And so, Naomi, the pleasant lady, in Ruth 1 and verse 19, we're told of her, they too went until they came to Bethlehem, Naomi and Ruth. Came to pass when they were come to Bethlehem, all the city was moved about them, and they said, is this Naomi? Now they were well known. And when they saw her, everyone was stirred up in this little town. She said unto them, as soon as they said that, don't call me Naomi. Don't you dare call me Pleasant. Call me not Naomi. Call me Mara. Mara means bitter. She said, don't call me pleasant, call me bitter. For the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. Now again, she's not accusing God. She's not blaming God. She just, this is the way it is. And she said, my life is bitter. God has dealt bitterly with me. I went out full of a husband, a good husband, 2 sons. The Lord brought me home again empty. Why do you call me Naomi? Seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me. The word Ruth, the name Ruth, is also a very beautiful word. It means friend. It's also a word for love. Now what are they going to do? No husbands, no family. Their best hope is to glean with the poor after the harvesters. You remember how the law of Moses made provision for poor people? How that they were not to harvest all, they were to leave the corners unharvested. And how whatever fell from amongst the sheaves, they were to leave on the ground for those who were poor, that they might come afterwards. What are these women going to do? In Deuteronomy 23 and verse 3, the Bible says, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation shall they not enter the congregation of the Lord forever. Ruth's a Moabite. Intermarriage with neighbors, and especially Moabite women, were condemned. Ezra and Nehemiah will later condemn all mixed marriages with unbelievers. But Ruth stresses the other side of it. She is a Moabite woman, but she's not a heathen. She's changed. She shows loyalty to Naomi. Remember what she said? Thy God shall be my God. She has renounced the idolatry, the heathen gods. She shows loyalty to Naomi, loyalty to Boaz, and most importantly, she is faithful and loyal to God's commands, as we shall see. You see, faithfulness and loyalty to God's commands is what makes you a true child of God. That's what John preached, John the Baptist. That's what Jesus preached. That's what the early church sounded forth. Faith and faithfulness, not blood, make us children of Abraham. Now, I don't have to tell you, we live in a world where there's growing tribalism. Throughout the world, ethnic conflicts are taking place. In our own land, segregation by race and tribe is making an ugly comeback. And it is crucial for the church to live out the truth that God is no respecter of persons. Ruth was not a child of God by her bloodlines, but faithful and true, her love does not falter. She will glean in the field. She will humble herself. She will face the struggle because she loves Naomi. Now, providentially, she gleans in the field of a man by the name of Boaz. In Ruth 2 and verses 5, we read, "Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, Whose damsel is this? Who is this young woman here? The servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house." Evidently Ruth had told, Naomi had told her enough to know that it was all right to glean. And so, very politely, she asked if she can do that. Boaz then goes to Ruth and he says to her, "Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field they reap, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee?" You see, there's a little indication of what could have happened to her. She could have easily been abused. She's a stranger. But Boaz very plainly said to the young men, "You leave her alone. I've given them charge. When you're thirsty, you go to the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn." She doesn't even have to go get her own water. The Bible said she fell down on her face. She bowed herself to the ground. She said unto him, "Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? Why are you doing this?" Now Boaz is well known. Elders turn aside to speak with him. He has a lot of servants. He has a lot of maidens. He's a very good and gracious man. He protects Ruth. The Bible said he even shows her special favor. Verse 14, Boaz said to her, "At mealtime come thou hither. Eat of the bread, dip thy morsel in the vinegar." And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat and was sufficed and left. When she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. And let fall some also of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them that she may glean them, and rebuke her not." You see, you're allowed to glean, but you cannot glean amongst the sheaves. You can't get into the harvest. And when she said, "Let me glean among them," she apparently did not understand. You don't go amongst the sheaves. You wait until they're done, and then you come. Did you see what he told his men? As you're going along and you're putting the sheaves together, just let some grains, handfuls of grain, just let them fall on purpose. Make her work a little easier for her. Make her job of gleaning a little bit softer for her, that she won't have to work so hard. Let fall also some handfuls of purpose. And don't rebuke her, even if she comes amongst the sheaves. But notice, please, what is it about Ruth that attracts Boaz? Now, Boaz is old enough to be her father. He refers to her as a daughter. But what is it that attracts him? Is she pretty? We're not told. But we're told what attracts him. She's faithful. He sees a beauty and faithfulness that few today see. So many people, when they're looking for a mate, look for that man that's, oh, he's so handsome, he'll just melt your heart. Or look for that girl that, oh, mama, she's so pretty, I can't stand it. When you really ought to be looking for somebody faithful. And that's what Boaz wants. Oh, he's had opportunities to have his way and marry whoever he would want. But he's found someone who's a rare prize, a faithful woman. In verse 11 we're told, Boaz answered and said unto her, "It hath been fully showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and mother and the land of thy nativity, and are come unto a people which thou knewest not heretofore. The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust." You have come to trust him. Many, many years ago, I decided I would raise some chickens. And not long after that, I decided I'm not a chicken farmer. I don't know a lot about raising chickens, and I didn't do real good with them. Made a lot of mistakes. But I saw just in that short time something that I still see in my eye. One cool morning I was out there, and the little chicks were around scratching, and the mother hen was watching them, and then she clucked. And when she clucked, they just all ran to her. And she fluffled out her feathers, and they all got under there, and she just sat down on them. In just a few moments, she raised up, and they all went back. Remember what Jesus said? "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that stonest the prophets and killest them that are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thee under my wings, as a hen does her chicks." What a beautiful picture Boaz gives us. Here he says, you have come to God, you have placed yourself under His wings, you have trusted Him. I know about that, Ruth. I know what you've done for Naomi. I know about your mother and father in another country and how you left that country. You left the land of your nativity. You came to a people you didn't know before. Now, Boaz happens to be a near kinsman to Naomi's late husband, Elimelech. The law of Moses is very specific. The next of kin was to take his brother's wife as his own wife and to raise up children in order to carry on the family line. Now, that was not always mandated, but that was what is to be done. It is at this point that Naomi can see the hand of God at work. In Ruth 2, in verses 20 and 22, he says, Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be the Lord, who hath not left off His kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, The man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. And Ruth the Moabitess said, He said also unto me, Thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they've ended all the harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. It would not have fallen well for her to be in someone else's field, to not have someone like Boaz to, as it were, spread his wing over her and protect her and charge his young men. You remember what she said when he told her, I've charged the young men not to bother you? And when you're thirsty, go to the vessels. She fell on her face. She just fell flat down and put her face on the ground before him. And she asked him a rather strange question. Why have I found grace in your eyes? A question I've had to ask. I look at God and I ask, why do you love me? Why do you care so much for me? Why did you let Jesus die for me? And I no better understand it than Ruth did. Grace. Why have I found grace in thine eyes? And now the second step in that is about to take place. Her mother-in-law tells her, Shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? Now is not Boaz of our kindred. She's going to provide for her after she's gone. Boaz is our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast. Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash yourself, therefore, anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he hath done eating and drinking. It shall be when he lies down, you shall mark the place thereof, where he lieth. Thou shalt go in, and uncover his feet, and lay thee down. He will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said without hesitation, All that thou sayest unto me, I will do. Ruth bathes, perfumes, dresses well. She goes down to the threshing floor outside the city. She waits till the men are through eating, drinking, walking very softly. And quietly she goes to his feet. She uncovers his feet and lays down at his feet. This plan is not without risk. If he makes the mistake of thinking she's there without morals, that she's there to seduce him, it's going to be a disaster. She is counting on Boaz to be faithful. To be true to the covenant that says you shall raise up children to the seed. During the night, Boaz rolls over. He senses someone at his feet. I never could slip up on Mother when she was sleeping. Didn't matter. She could be snoring. You'll stand beside her for about 30 seconds. She'll wake up and say, "What do you want?" Well, I guess Boaz was a little like that, because there in the night, he sensed something's in here with me. Something's down there at my feet. And he says, "Who are you?" She said, "I am Ruth, thy handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thy handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. Take this garment and spread it over me." What a beautiful, beautiful picture. The New King James Version says, "Take your maidservant under your wing." The word "spread your cloak" is a play on words. It can also mean spread your wing. As Ruth came seeking refuge under the Lord's wing, she now asks Boaz to be the Lord's wing and spread it over her. And he doesn't disappoint her. He said to her, "Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness, more faithfulness, more loyalty in this latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether rich or poor." It was a great thing she did when she followed Ruth back home, Naomi back home. It was a great thing when she went out and gleaned for Naomi. But he said, "What you've done here is greater than any of that, because you've come to trust in God and His law and what He's provided. And you didn't let your head be turned by your emotions for the young men." The term kindness is the same word as previously noted, faithful and loyal. Ruth shows faithfulness. She shows loyalty. Her head is not turned, her heart is not turned. And Boaz shows her great kindness as well. May I submit to you tonight, today, we desperately need to hear the call to loyalty, to faithfulness, to obedient love. And at the risk of sounding a little bit flippant, I don't care what the world's doing, but we need to be faithful. We need to be loving. We need to be loyal and call out to them. In a world where contracts are nullified, marriages are dissolved, unborn children are aborted for convenience, we need to hear this. Some contracts ought to be nullified. Some marriages are terrible, and some pregnancies are life-threatening. But we, brethren, must be faithful and loyal to the commands of God, no matter what. We entered into a covenant with Him. When we were baptized into Christ and rose, we were in His house. We were His children. And we promised that we would bear His name faithfully. Every time we partake of the Lord's Supper, we are reminded of His covenant and the fact that we have agreed we will keep that covenant. And that's part of the reason we remember Him every first day of the week. You see, we can go through life uncommitted to anything but our own happiness. The irony is we end up unhappy and give a bitter inheritance to our children. Finally, there is Boaz, and of all things, he's called the Redeemer. He becomes God's wing. He typifies the grace of God. He becomes responsible for the other person, as Ruth did with Naomi. Faithful and loyal love tells us we're responsible for one another. We have an obligation to one another, a duty to one another. Here is a living description of God's people, loving each other, committed to the Lord, and therefore committed to one another, sharing our lives responsibly with each other. And I have to tell you tonight, as I read the book of Ruth, I'm made to realize there are people who love me. That's not unusual. But I'm not lovable. That's not why they love me. They love me because they're faithful. I'm not always the most pleasant of people, I know that. But they love me anyway. They're faithful, they're loyal. That's the kind of love that makes a marriage last. That's the kind of love that binds a congregation together. We love people who are not lovable. We love them when they're not pleasant. We love them when they're bitter. But we love them. There's one more hurdle to overcome for Boaz and Ruth. There is a closer relative. And this matter of the land going back to him, and even of raising seed, must first come to him. And so, Boaz makes sure all the customs are followed and witnessed. The unnamed relative is offered the land, to which he says, yes. I thought I ought to tell you the land's open for being redeemed. And of course this man is willing to redeem it and have it for his own to have. You know, you really never owned the land then. You just had it until the year of Jubilee when it all went back to the original owners. But he was glad to get it. And then the other shoe drops. Well, know this, that the day you get it, you get a wife. You get Ruth the Moabitess for a wife. Now, I've seen some strange customs in this world. I've seen places where you can't sell the land unless you give the fellow unless the fellow that's buying it gives you a cane. If he doesn't give you a walking stick, no deal. That's a strange custom. There are strange customs observed in our country and in others. But I don't think I've ever known of one where if you get some land, you get a wife in the deal. That seems odd to us. Well, when he hears that, he said, I can't do it. It's not that he has any problem with her. He knows that if he takes her, that it must go into the line of her seed, her husband. And it will mar his inheritance in the land. And so he says he cannot. So Boaz said that he would take Ruth for wife, and he would redeem the land. Her kindness, her faithfulness, her loyalty had not gone unnoticed. And as soon as it said that, all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thou worthily in Ephrathah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thine house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this woman, unknowing what blessings they are bestowing upon them. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife, and went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the women said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. There was one other strange custom that was observed there that I overlooked. You know, when I said let the other foot fall, that's funny to me, because to seal the deal, Boaz reached down and took his shoe off and gave it to the other man. Strange customs, and yet they were binding. So when you read in the Bible strange customs like immersion in water, don't be too shocked. When you read of such strange things as drinking after one another, don't be too shocked. When you see that people sing without the aid of mechanical instruments of music as they did in the Bible, don't be too shocked. Those are not customs. Those are commands. That's what the Lord put in place. And sometimes to some people they're as strange as a man taking his shoe off. But still, that's what God said to do. Oh, they said of her, this child that's born, he shall be a restorer of thy life and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. Naomi took the child, laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi. They called his name Obed. He is the father. He is the father of Jesse, the father of King David. Here is a Moabite woman stepping out of a heathen country right into the bloodline of Jesus Christ. When you read Psalm 17 the next time, and you read that beautiful expression, Keep me as the apple of thine eye. Hide me under the shadow of thy wings. And you know David wrote it. Where do you think he learned that? Oh, I'm sure Naomi told the story. She was sheltered under the shadow of his wing. I'm sure Obed and Ruth told the story. Oh, she was sheltered under the shadow of his wing. And so when David came along, and the stories of his great-grandmother were told, he too would say, shelter me under the shadow of thy wing. I ask you in closing tonight, are you faithful and loyal? Faithful and true. You know, in the book of Revelation, when Jesus Christ steps out on that great white steed, on that great white horse, and there's a name written upon his thigh. Do you remember what it was? Faithful and true. The very same thing. Tied into the very same story. Are you faithful and true? Jesus is the epitome of faithfulness. The epitome of truth. And we as his children must be that. Faithful and loyal. No matter what. If you're not a Christian, a member of the church that Jesus established, then you're a stranger, much like Ruth was over the land of Moab. Paul describes it this way in Ephesians 2:12, that at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. Without Jesus, you have no hope. But in Christ, having been baptized into Christ for the remission of your sins, you rise up from the water as a new creature, born again, added to the household of God. And this is how Paul describes it in verse 19. Now therefore, you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God. You can become part of God's household, part of his family. One of the greatest lessons of the book of Ruth is that God is no respecter of persons. I ask you tonight as a Christian, are you faithful and loyal? Are you faithful and true? When you obeyed the gospel, you made a promise to God that you would follow him, that you would obey him, that you would be faithful and loyal, no matter what. Are you? Do you obey his will? No matter what. Are you willing to suffer any shame? Any humiliation? Any rejection so that you might remain faithful and true? Ruth was. Or have you let your head and your heart be turned aside? Jesus redeemed us. He has sheltered us under the shadow of his wing. Do we dare reject his kindness? He is faithful and true. What about us? What about you?